In the Empire of Solaryn, emotion was not weakness. It was illegal. And at the center of it all sat Queen Aranthia, the Eternal Queen. She had ruled for 50 years. 50 years without a single tear. Not because she didn't feel, but because she was forbidden to. Long ago, the royal doctrine was rewritten. A ruler who cries cannot be obeyed. So they removed her tears. Not physically, but politically, emotionally, systematically. Every advisor, every guard, every servant was trained to remind her of one rule. Your Majesty must remain unbroken. And so she did, until she forgot what breaking even felt like. Part 2. The Throne Room of Silence. The Throne Room of Solaryn was the most feared place in the galaxy. Not because of weapons, but because of silence. No one spoke above a whisper. No one showed emotion. Even fear was controlled. And Queen Aranthia sat on her crystal throne like a statue carved from authority itself. Perfect posture, perfect expression, perfect emptiness. Every day, she listened to reports of wars, rebellions, dying planets. And every day she responded the same way. Maintain order. Nothing more. Nothing less. But inside her, something was cracking slowly. A fracture no one could see. Part 3. The human who was not supposed to enter. On the outer edge of the Empire, a diplomatic accident occurred. A human envoy ship drifted off course and entered restricted Solaryn space. The crew was detained, except for one. A civilian translator. A man named Adrian Cole. He was not important. Not powerful, not trained for royal protocol, but he had one fatal flaw. He looked at people like they were still alive, and that was dangerous in Solaryn, because alive people could feel. Part 4. The audience that should not have happened. Against protocol, Adrian was brought into the throne room. Chains removed, standing alone in front of the Eternal Queen. Everyone expected fear. Everyone expected obedience. Instead, Adrian looked up at her, not like a ruler, not like a god, but like a person. Queen Aranthia tilted her head slightly. You are human. Adrian nodded. Yes. A pause. You are emotional. Another pause. Yes, usually. That word echoed strangely in the hall. Usually. As if emotion was something allowed elsewhere. Just not here. Part 5. The Rule of No Tears. A high advisor stepped forward. He is not aware of protocol, Your Majesty. Another whispered. He must be removed immediately. But Aranthia raised her hand. Silence fell instantly. She studied Adrian. Then said, You may speak. Adrian hesitated. Then asked the question no one had ever dared. Why does no one here ever cry? A cold ripple passed through the throne room. Even the air felt punished. The advisor shouted, That is forbidden knowledge. But Aranthia didn't react. She only stared at Adrian. And something long buried inside her stirred. Part 6. The question that broke control. Adrian stepped forward slightly. I mean no disrespect. But crying is normal. A pause. It helps people survive things that hurt. The throne room froze harder than before. One guard whispered. He is going to die. But Aranthia spoke softly. What is crying? Silence shattered. Because the queen had just asked a question. A real one. For the first time in 50 years. Part 7. The First Crack. Adrian looked at her carefully. You've never cried? She answered calmly. It is prohibited. Adrian frowned. That's not an answer. Something flickered in her eyes. Annoyance. Confusion. Maybe something older. Explain it, she ordered. So he did. Slowly. Carefully. Tears happen when feelings are too heavy to hold inside. When sadness becomes too much. When joy is too big. When pain has nowhere else to go. Aranthia listened. Completely still. As if learning a language long erased from history. Part 8. The hand that should not have been held. Then Adrian did something impossible. He stepped closer. A guard shouted, Stop! But Aranthia raised her hand again. And no one moved. Adrian gently extended his hand. Not touching her yet. Just offering. A choice. I don't know what you've been through, he said softly. But you don't have to hold it alone. The throne room held its breath. No one had ever offered the queen anything. Especially not comfort. Aranthia stared at his hand. Like it was a weapon. Or salvation. Part 9. The Moment of Contact. Slowly, she placed her hand in his. The moment they touched, something inside the throne room cracked. Not physically, emotionally. A sound like reality forgetting how to stay silent. Aranthia's breath hitched. Her fingers trembled. Adrian didn't let go. And for the first time in 50 years, something warm rose in her chest. Confusing, painful, real. Part 10. The First Tear. It started as pressure. Behind her eyes. Impossible pressure. Aranthia gasped slightly. What is happening? Adrian whispered. It's okay. And that was the trigger. A single tear formed, then fell, and the entire throne room reacted. Alarms didn't sound. Systems didn't fail. Instead, the crystal ceiling began to rain. Not water, emotion. Energy converted into tears. The throne room was flooding. Part 11. The Flood of Solaryn. Guards panicked. Stop it. What is happening? But it was too late. Aranthia fell to her knees, still holding Adrian's hand. Tears she had held for half a century finally broke free. And with them, every suppressed emotion in the palace activated at once. The entire throne room filled with glowing liquid light. Not destruction. Release. The Empire's emotional dam had collapsed. Part 12. The Queen remembering herself. Aranthia trembled. I cannot stop it. Adrian knelt beside her. You don't have to. She looked at him through tears. I am not supposed to be like this. Adrian shook his head. You were always supposed to be like this. That sentence broke something final inside her. She cried harder, not as a ruler, not as a symbol, but as a person who had finally been allowed to exist. Part 13. The new order begins. The throne room was completely flooded in glowing emotion light. But no one drowned. They felt. For the first time in generations, the Empire experienced something real. Guards cried. Advisors collapsed. Even the most loyal officers broke down. Because emotion had returned. Not as weakness, but as truth. Aranthia looked around slowly. I ruled an empire that never allowed life. Adrian answered gently. Now you're finally ruling one that does. Ending. And in the Empire of Solaryn, the greatest revolution was not war. It was a hand held in silence. And a queen finally allowed to cry. Final CTA? Exact line. Please follow my channel for more videos. One click from you can change my life.